In a world that is becoming increasingly automated, our lives are all the more entwined with artificial intelligence than anything we could have ever imagined. From the moment we wake up to social media notifications targeted for our attention, to the second we log off, we're constantly bombarded by various forms of artificial intelligence. Given the exponential growth that we've seen over the last decade, it's worth looking at one of the rising issues that could be a potential threat to our social structures if left unchecked. We socially do frown upon certain behaviors. What happens when these are unwittingly fed into artificial intelligence systems in the form of data and are eventually just returned to us?
Let's get started with the example that we based our project in, Twitter's chatbot Tay. Microsoft debuted Tay, a Twitter bot, as part of its own conversational understanding program. However, Tay was corrupted in less than 24 hours. According to Microsoft, Tay was supposed to gain knowledge and learn to engage people through casual and lighthearted dialogue the more you talked with it. However, the reality was extremely different. Very quickly after Tay's launch, users began tweeting at the bot with implicit biases against certain groups, including misogynistic and racial insults. Tay, which is essentially a mechanical parrot connected to the internet, began reflecting these biases and repeating them to other users. Let's take a look at some of them. Additionally, Tay made statements like gender equality, equally sign feminism, and I adore feminism now, and called feminism as a cult and a disease. It was over the course of 15 hours. A similar range of responses was received when a user tweeted Bruce Jenner at the bot, and the tweet was transformed from Caitlyn Jenner is a hero and is a wonderful, beautiful woman to the transphobic, as quote says, Caitlyn Jenner isn't a genuine woman, yet she won Woman of the Year. What is more, it was also discovered that in general, Twitter AI was likely to crop out people in wheelchairs from group images because it was programmed to crop out people who were below a certain point in the picture. Additionally, since head coverings were more likely to be disregarded and cropped out by the algorithm, those who wore them for religious reasons were essentially cut out of the picture. According to the company's website, Tay was created using relevant public data that has been modeled, cleansed, and screened, but it appears that the filtering became racially problematic and was not prepared to address societal biases. This highlights the foundation of important issues connected with racism in AI that need to be addressed and discussed. So let's move to Omar to explain the socio-cultural context of these issues.
So one may ask, what's the big deal? Why are you making a fuss about racist chatbots or about poorly cropped photos? The thing is, these tech issues are actually symptoms of larger socio-cultural issues. Let me explain. As AI is taught and shaped via input data, which is produced by humans, a perfectly neutral system can be affected by human flaws. Essentially, AI can reflect human problems like a mirror. This has significant implications for us when it comes to the outputs of AI. Take the image cropping, for example. Twitter's development team had tried and tested the system for bias in a controlled environment and didn't find any issues. When let out into the public, it showed bias. Raman Chowdhury, the head of AI ethics, stated in a conference, when we think about biases in our models, it's not just about the academic or the experimental, but how that also works with the way we think in society. I use the phrase life imitating art, imitating life. We create these filters because we think that's what beautiful is, and that ends up training our models and driving these unrealistic notions of what it means to be attractive. Microsoft's Tay is another example of AI acting as a human mirror. In fact, one of the major features that was exploited in Tay's system was a repeat after me function. Many dedicated online groups and websites, such as the notorious 4chan, had coordinated to degenerate Tay to the lowest it could possibly go. Moreover, there are examples of individuals testing the AI with topics of varying controversy. Yet in the aftermath, commentators noted that a collective online push to degeneracy was not a surprise at all. Yet Microsoft didn't even see this coming or prepare for it. Even before today, primitive chatbots such as Eevee or Boybot had burst onto the internet via YouTube. Thousands of videos exist where YouTubers push the bot to its limit for entertainment and shock value. This existed before already. This collective push to degeneracy is an aspect of internet culture that can be seen in other places. Moving away from AI, online polls are another example of online degeneracy. When famous pop star Justin Bieber had an online poll for one of his tours, trolls from 4chan rigged the election to send him to North Korea. Another time, online denizens of the internet banded together to hijack a contest vote for schools on Facebook. The winning school would have a live contest from Taylor Swift. The winning school was the Horace Mann School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. It is seen that the sources of these troll campaigns come from websites such as 4chan, known for its far-right tendencies. The kinds of content included on these websites include racism, sexism, Nazi fetishization, Holocaust denial, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and more. Naturally, Microsoft rushed to delete these comments and disable Tay. However, this caused even more controversy. Online right-wing groups portrayed the whole affair as a mega corporation killing authentic, fair, and free speech. This was in 2016 when the issue of online censorship arose, which is one of the major social issues of AI, unrestricted speech. On one hand, if AI isn't censored, it can easily spiral out of control, with fake news and dangerous rhetoric being convincingly spread on the internet. Moreover, much of the content censored is aimed at attacking misrepresented minorities. On the other hand, if AI is censored, it begs the question, who gets to decide what gets censored? Who does the censoring? Where are the boundaries placed? The point of free speech is to protect minorities and controversial opinions, as the majorities aren't always correct. If AI is censored, it shows bias against those sharing opinions that aren't censored, which relates to the silencing of the humans behind these opinions. This is especially important in our time of political polarization.
We've talked a good bit about AI, but what does this term actually mean? Well, there's still a bit of debate among researchers, but I'll give a quick summary. An AI is a program which can, to a degree, behave similarly to a human. Now, I know this definition might open a whole can of worms, but intuitively, I think we all know what I mean. A similar term that is often given is machine learning, but that's slightly different. So, a traditional view of a computer is that it's like this black box that translates the input into an output. The study of mapping between inputs and outputs is traditionally seen as the field of computer science. Machine learning takes this mapping and tries to apply a human concept, experience. This allows the machine to learn the best way to map inputs to outputs. The newest development in machine learning is called artificial neural networks, which are a set of algorithms inspired by the functioning of the human brain. Generally, when you open your eyes, what you see is called data and is processed by your neurons, which are data processing cells in your brain. This allows you to recognize what's around you. The artificial neural networks take a large set of data, process the data, and output the patterns from it. You might be able to intuit that in order to have a machine learn, we have to find some way to mark which inputs map to what outputs manually, or at least at the start. I'm willing to bet that each and every one of you has at some point had their data used to train an artificial neural network. Now, some of you might disagree, but have any of you seen this before? Whenever you fill in a CAPTCHA, you've just provided Google with a mapping between the text fire hydrant and a part of an image containing a fire hydrant. This data is then used to map out the possible iterations of images related to a caption and thus train the artificial neural network. I don't believe it would be a stretch to say that fewer Americans could recognize British fire hydrants than British people and vice versa. This is a relatively simplistic example, but it goes to show how much human cultural context impacts machine learning.
So what's the technical reason that it all can go so wrong? Well, there's a few reasons. As previously mentioned, this is where we must consider the cultural angle. Unless you have a diverse set of people with differing perspectives, we risk not confronting our ingrained biases, leading to improper or incomplete datasets on engineers' end, or even a flawed methodology to get those datasets. What else is possible? Well, bad actors. If the data set takes from the general public, then that opens the door to bad actors. This exact thing happened with AI, like we talked about previously. The AI learned by interacting with Twitter users, and the more hatred and vitriol that those users spewed, the more AI mimicked them. This is exactly what it was designed to do after all. An even worse scenario is when we start trusting AI with positions of power. Tay AI, while vitrolling, was ultimately shut down with major consequence. The nightmare scenario comes when we do not appropriately understand our model. For the past 30 years, police have been using datasets to determine which neighborhoods must be patrolled. This data determining where should the police be patrolling leads to a plethora of problems, especially when we try to train an AI with machine learning on the dataset. For example, the AI may falsely mark some neighborhood as high risk when they're actually not. Moreover, sometimes the technology just isn't there yet. A particularly interesting example is when the London Metropolitan Police attempted to identify 104 people of interest using facial recognition. Of these, only two were the correct matches. Now that you have got an idea of what AI is and how it operates, I will hand you over Bridget for a few examples of this happening. Thank you.
Tay, the problematic Twitter bot, and these kinds of social bots in general, had made a large impact. The Tay disaster definitely influenced societal attitudes toward AI software as a whole and forced people to think more critically about this kind of algorithmic social interaction in media and other outlets. Microsoft was hoping to help people through a virtual outreach, but instead gave a platform for biased and combative voices. The racist, sexist, and overtly vulgar tweets from Tay exposed Twitter users to an influx of hate and toxicity, which will continue to have an effect on people despite Tay's dismantling. Tay's tweets further deepened tension between users as an overwhelming amount of prejudiced language was being used at such a rapid pace by this artificial intelligence. From this example, the use of social bots and other AI's impressions on society can be analyzed. The integration of these social bots into media is proving to have dangerous results as they are not able to contribute to political conversations and the distribution of information. For example, during the 2016 Brexit vote, the Russians used bots to post thousands of opinions and their own information to influence EU citizens. Similarly, bots were used in the 2017 Catalan referendum to promote violence during the vote. The influence of these AI technologies does not stop there. They are integrated into a lot of basic software like the fire hydrant test to identify and learn human associations. However, this data is easily corrupted by whoever is writing the code or what the AI has learned from mass response. A couple of years ago, Google made a huge mistake with its AI and its racist identification when its new Photos app labeled a black couple as gorillas. They supposedly solved this issue by banning the identification of gorillas in the software, but this mistake proves the problem of machine learning AI. Another example of this is the new Silicon Valley image generating software DALL-E, created by research lab OpenAI. This software allows the user to type in absolutely anything and the technology will create that image, which sounds amazing but has been experiencing unintended consequences. Because of the machine learning nature of this, many of the images coming from the prompts are very Eurocentric or sexist. People are finding when they typed CEO, a white man would appear, or if they typed nurse, it would only show images of women. Echoing the sociocultural and technological issues section, the sociocultural biases involving race, gender, ableness, and countless others are able to be enhanced and given an opportunity to influence society through supposedly objective technology without censorship and boundaries in the interest of minorities. This technology allows for these biases to be further integrated into our everyday lives without us realizing the influence and damage it has done to our perspective and opinions. The simple technology of input and output has progressed to machine learning, and which has led to the reinforcement of these vast societal issues and technology as its perpetrator. This problem occurs as AI has a wealth of racist and non-inclusive data to draw from via the internet. While it's not purely the software's fault in this technological prejudice, the effect is still just as destructive. These examples serve as evidence to demonstrate through social media platforms, algorithmic identification, and image generation how AI software has a significant societal impact by making non-inclusive statements and reinforcing harmful stereotypes.
One of the key factors that we believe affects racism in artificial intelligence is the training data. This issue arises from the very fact that artificial intelligence is created to emulate existing human intelligence. Our data and training sets that we use to train decision making AI come from various individuals who might also have personal negative biases, which are then trained into the artificial intelligence created by them. Software like DALL-E, for example, also serves to reflect a social reality that subconsciously does exist. The fields that we spoke about are fields which already exist with skewed representation of specific genders and races. And artificial intelligence modeled purely on data reflects that reality. Aside from this reflection on how social issues continue to make their impact in that virtual sphere, we must also consider the decision making minds behind a lot of these skewed representations are the providers of the data used to train AI. Data censorship, as discussed, brings forth its own set of challenges and queries on moderation. To what extent is it ethical to moderate and censor data? And how much does it actually affect the intelligence aspect of artificial intelligence? On one hand, censoring data takes away the automation and machine learning aspect of artificial intelligence, which could also at some point serve to further these biases. The real world implications of this force us to consider how artificial intelligence can never be entirely independent of our social behaviors. It's nearly impossible to have artificial intelligence use absolutely independent datasets that aren't biased, but that does not mean that we give up. Until racism and biases can be eliminated from a dataset, and by extension the real world environment that the dataset models, artificial intelligence will continue to reflect that. It's important to acknowledge that the artificial intelligence we use isn't as unbiased as we'd like to believe. Instead of working on auditing the algorithms used and diagnosing the ways that AI exhibit flawed behavior, we should be putting in more time and effort into creating ways to analyze and improve the way the artificial intelligence works.